A bear entered the backyard, but two German shepherds were waiting to defend the family. The motion sensor tripped at 4:47 a.m. No alarm, no flashing light, just a single vibration on Jack Morrison's phone, the kind that pulls you from sleep before your brain registers why. He grabbed the screen. Driveway cam, empty. Side perimeter, clear. Then the backyard feed loaded. A shadow, massive, moving along the tree line like a piece of the forest had broken off and learned to walk. Jack's throat tightened. Em! His wife was already awake. She'd heard it too, not the phone. Something older. The way silence falls when an apex predator moves through territory. The kind of quiet that makes your spine remember what it felt like to be prey. Down the hall, their kids, Mia, 6, and Connor, 4, slept in bunk beds decorated with glow-in-the-dark stars. Toys littered the living room floor. A forgotten juice box sat on the porch railing. The faint scent of last night's mac and cheese still clung to the kitchen. Normal. Everything was supposed to be normal, except for the two black and tan shapes standing motionless in the backyard, ears locked forward, bodies carved from stone. Thor and Luna weren't barking. That's how you knew it was real. Thor was 8 years old and built like German engineering designed never to fail. 95 pounds of working-line genetics, the kind bred for border patrol in Bavaria, not for ribbons at weekend shows. His coat ran almost black across the saddle, and his eyes carried the kind of calm you only earn through years of reading threats most people never see coming. He'd patrolled this property for 6 years. Perimeter check, threat assessment, defense protocol. He was the reason Jack and Emily Morrison could sleep 30 miles outside Whitefish, Montana, where the nearest neighbor was a retired logger who checked his mail twice a week, and the nearest deputy was 40 minutes out if the roads weren't frozen over. Luna was 2. Smaller, 78 pounds and still filling out, but faster. Her coat was the classic tan and black, and her ears never stopped moving, constantly triangulating sounds the human world filtered out as background noise. She'd been trained by Thor, not by Jack, by Thor. The old male had taught her the patrol route, the check-in points, the difference between a deer crossing the back fence and something that didn't belong. They worked in shifts without anyone telling them to. Thor took the night watch, midnight to dawn, patrolling a loop that covered the driveway, the wood pile, the propane tank, and the back fence line near the creek. Luna handled dusk and morning, her younger legs covering ground twice as fast, her intensity making up for what she lacked in experience. But when the sensor tripped, both dogs were already outside. They'd heard it 20 minutes before the camera did. Jack had installed the system 2 years ago after a black bear tore through their trash cans 3 nights in a row. Motion sensors, cameras with night vision, floodlights on timers, the works. It made Emily feel safer. It made the insurance company happy. But the real security system was standing in the backyard right now, shoulder to shoulder, absolutely silent. Thor's nose worked the air. Luna's body coiled tighter, her weight shifting to her back legs. Neither dog looked at the house. Their focus was total, aimed at the tree line 40 yards out, where the pines grew thick enough to swallow light. Jack watched through the window. They smell it, Emily whispered beside him. Yeah. What do we do? Jack didn't answer. Because the truth was, they didn't do anything. Thor and Luna did. That was the deal. That's what working dogs were bred for, to stand between their family and whatever came out of the woods. Jack and Emily just had to trust the training and hope it was enough. The Morrison property sat on 11 acres carved into the western edge of the Flathead National Forest. Dense pine, rocky outcroppings, a creek that ran fast in spring and froze solid by December. Beautiful, isolated, and completely unforgiving to mistakes. Jack was a remote software engineer. Emily taught online ESL classes to students in South Korea. They'd moved here from Seattle 5 years ago, chasing space and silence in a backyard big enough for their kids to grow up the way Jack remembered growing up, building forts, catching frogs, learning that the world was bigger than a screen. But the woods weren't a playground. They were an ecosystem with rules older than roads, and at the top of that system sat animals that weighed 400 pounds and could flip a refrigerator. Thor and Luna knew those rules. Every morning at 6 a.m., Thor walked the fence line. Not a casual stroll, a tactical sweep. He'd stop at each corner post, scent check the ground, mark territory, then move on. Luna shadowed him for the first 6 months, watching, learning the rhythm. Now she ran her own route, faster, looser, but just as thorough. They patrolled during meals, during playtime, during the moments when Mia and Connor were outside on the swings or digging in the sandbox Jack had built near the deck. The kids never noticed. To them, Thor and Luna were just there, always there, like furniture that breathed. But Jack noticed. He'd see Thor pause mid-patrol and stare at the tree line for 30 seconds, reading something invisible. He'd watch Luna circle the perimeter of the yard 3 times before settling near the back door. Her body angled so she could see both the house and the woods simultaneously. They weren't pets. They were sentries. Emily used to joke that they'd bought the best home security system in Montana for the price of kibble and vet bills. But it wasn't a joke. Not really. Jack had done the research. A German Shepherd from working lines, real working lines, not American show stock, cost $3,000 minimum. Training ran another 2, but a professionally installed security system with 24/7 monitoring cost $800 a year and couldn't bite. Thor and Luna could bite. They had never had to. Not once in 6 years. But Jack had seen the training demos when he'd picked Thor up from the breeder in Kalispell. He'd watched the dog lock onto a padded decoy's arm and hold through kicks, strikes, and full-body tackles. The trainer said Thor scored a 9 out of 10 on drive and an 8 on control. That's rare, the trainer had told him. Most dogs max out drive but have no off switch. Thor's got both. He'll defend your family until his heart stops, but he won't bite the mailman. Jack had nodded like he understood. He didn't. Not until 18 months later when a drunk driver missed the turn near their driveway and ended up in the ditch at 2 a.m. The guy stumbled out, disoriented, and started walking toward the house looking for help. Thor met him at the property line. Didn't bark, didn't growl, just stood there, silent, immovable, blocking the path. The man froze. Jack came out with a flashlight and a phone, called a tow truck. The guy left. Thor went back to his patrol. That's when Jack realized what he'd actually bought. Not a dog, a professional. And professionals don't bark unless the situation requires it. Right now, Thor wasn't barking. That meant the situation was already past the warning phase. Jack pulled on his boots. Emily grabbed her phone. "I'm calling Fish and Wildlife." No signal. She checked the screen. 1 bar. Flickering. The tower was 12 miles south and the mountains played hell with reception on cold mornings. Then what? Jack looked out the window again. Thor and Luna hadn't moved. Still statues, still silent, but their ears were tracking something moving parallel to the fence line, and their heads turned in perfect sync. Left, left, stop, left again. Whatever was out there wasn't running away. It was circling. "We stay inside," Jack said. "Lock the doors. Wake the kids and get them into our room. And the dogs." Jack didn't answer right away, because the answer was already written into the contract they'd made the day they brought Thor home. The dog's job was to stay outside and handle threats. Jack's job was to keep his family safe behind walls and locked doors. But watching Thor and Luna standing in the frozen grass, breath misting in the pre-dawn air, he felt something twist in his chest that didn't have a name. It sat somewhere between gratitude and guilt. Emily squeezed his hand. "They've got this." Jack nodded. He wanted to believe that. Out in the yard, Thor's ears pinned back flat against his skull. 1 second of stillness. Then he barked. Once. Deep. Commanding. The kind of sound that carries weight. Luna barked twice in response. Sharper, higher, a confirmation signal. Jack's stomach dropped. That was the alarm. The real one. The grizzly stepped out of the tree line at 5:03 a.m. 420 pounds of bone, muscle, and hunger that had been buried under snow for 5 months. His fur was matted and dull, still patchy from hibernation. His eyes were small, sunken, and locked onto the only thing that mattered right now: food. He'd woken up 3 weeks early. Late March in Montana was supposed to still be deep winter, but the temperatures had spiked into the 50s and the snowmelt had flooded his den. He'd crawled out, groggy, disoriented, and metabolically starved. His body was burning through fat reserves that were supposed to last until May, and every hour he stayed awake without eating pushed him closer to the edge where instinct overrides caution. He'd spent the last 2 days following scent trails, deer carcasses picked clean by wolves, a frozen elk half buried in a drift. Nothing. Then, last night, the wind shifted and brought him something else. Propane, garbage, cooking grease, dog food, humans. He'd learned about humans the hard way. 2 years ago, he'd raided a campsite near Glacier and taken a rubber bullet to the shoulder from a ranger. It hurt. It taught him that humans weren't prey. They were something else. Loud, dangerous, unpredictable. But right now, he was past lessons. He was past caution. He moved toward the Morrison property the way a landslide moves downhill. Inevitable. Thor saw him first, not with his eyes, with his nose. The scent hit him 30 seconds before the bear broke the tree line. Wild, musky, layered with the sour tang of an animal whose digestive system had been shut down for months and was rebooting badly. It didn't smell like the black bears that occasionally wandered through in summer. This was heavier, older, wrong. Thor's hackles rose in a ridge from his shoulders to his tail. Luna caught it a second later. Her whole body went rigid, her lips peeling back to expose her canines. She didn't growl. Not yet, but every muscle in her frame locked into a preloaded spring. Then the bear stepped into the open. The size difference was obscene. Thor weighed 95 pounds, Luna 78. The grizzly outweighed both of them combined by 200 pounds and stood 3 feet taller on all fours. When he lifted his head to scent the air, his shoulder blades rose above the fence line. From the window, Jack's mouth went dry. "Oh my God!" Emily's hand covered her mouth. "That's not... It's a grizzly. They don't come this far. It's here." The bear paused 20 yards from the fence. His massive head swung left, then right, cataloging threats. He saw the house, the deck, the yard lights, the propane tank sitting exposed near the driveway. And he saw the dogs. For a moment, nothing moved. The bear stared at Thor and Luna. Thor and Luna stared back. It was a negotiation written in body language older than words. The bear's posture said, "I'm bigger, I'm stronger, move." Thor's posture, weight forward, head low, eyes locked, said, "No." The grizzly snorted, a wet, dismissive sound. Then he turned and started walking along the fence line. Not retreating, testing. Luna's eyes tracked him. Her body pivoted to follow his movement, her paws adjusting in tiny increments to keep her squared up. Thor didn't move his feet. He shifted his weight, angling his head to keep the bear in his peripheral vision, while his ears rotated backward, listening for Luna, confirming she was in position. They weren't guarding randomly. They were running a 2-point defense. The bear reached the corner post where the fence turned toward the driveway. He stopped, lifted one massive paw and pressed it against the top rail. The wood creaked. He pushed harder. The rail bowed but held. He moved on. Jack grabbed his phone. Still 1 bar. He opened the text thread with his neighbor Dan and typed, "Grizzly on property. Armed." The message sat there. Sending, failed. Damn it. Emily had already moved. She was in the hallway, quietly waking Mia and Connor. Her voice calm and controlled in that way parents learn when they need their kids to obey without asking questions. "Sweetie, we're going to have a sleepover in Mommy and Daddy's room. Bring your blanket." Mia rubbed her eyes. "Why?" "Because I said so. Come on, quick and quiet." Connor was already up, clutching his stuffed moose. He looked at his mom's face and didn't argue. Out in the yard, the bear had completed a half circle. He was near the woodpile now, 60 feet from the back door. He stopped and sniffed the air. His head turned toward the deck where the garbage cans sat in a wooden enclosure Jack had built to keep out raccoons. The bear took a step toward it. Thor barked, not the single alarm bark from before. A warning, low, sustained, vibrating through his chest like an engine. It said, "Stop." The bear stopped. He turned his head and looked directly at Thor. His ears flattened. His lips didn't pull back. Grizzlies don't show teeth like wolves. But his body language shifted. The lazy exploratory posture disappeared. Now he looked focused, annoyed. He took 2 steps toward Thor. Luna barked, sharp, aggressive. She moved 3 feet to the right, forcing the bear to choose, focus on Thor or turn to address her. The bear hesitated. That hesitation was everything. It meant the dogs weren't just obstacles. They were a tactical problem. And animals that survive to 400 pounds do so by avoiding problems they don't need to solve. The grizzly grunted, turned, and kept walking the fence line. But he wasn't leaving. He was mapping. Jack grabbed the shotgun from the safe in the bedroom closet. A Mossberg 500, 12 gauge. He'd bought it for home defense but never loaded it outside of practice sessions at the range. His hand shook as he thumbed shells into the tube. Buckshot. 3 rounds. Emily stood in the doorway with both kids behind her. "What are you doing?" "Preparing." "For what?" Jack didn't answer. Because the answer was that he had no idea what you were supposed to do when a grizzly decided your backyard was a buffet and your dogs were the only thing between it and your children. The protocol was simple. Don't engage, make noise, back away, let the bear leave, call Fish and Wildlife. But the protocol assumed the bear was outside and you were inside. It didn't account for Thor and Luna standing between the bear and the house, refusing to back down. If it gets through the fence, it won't. It won't. The dogs won't let it. Jack wanted to believe her, but he'd seen the size of that animal. He'd watched it push a fence post like it was testing a door, and he absolutely knew, that if the grizzly decided the food inside that house was worth the fight, there was nothing two dogs could do to stop it except die trying. He pumped the shotgun. The sound was too loud in the small bedroom. Connor started crying. "Daddy, I'm scared." Jack knelt down, keeping the barrel pointed at the floor. "I know, buddy, but Thor and Luna are outside. They're keeping us safe, okay?" Connor nodded, wiping his nose with the back of his hand. Mia was staring at the window. "Are they going to be okay?" Jack opened his mouth, closed it, because he couldn't lie to his daughter and he couldn't tell her the truth. Emily answered for him. "They're the bravest dogs in the whole world, Mia, and brave dogs always win." It was a lie, but it was the kind of lie parents tell because the truth is too heavy for 6-year-olds to carry. Mia seemed to accept it. She sat on the bed, hugging her knees. Jack stood and moved back to the window. Outside, the grizzly had reached the back corner of the property. The fence there was older, original construction from whoever owned the land before the Morrisons. The posts were graying. The rails were loose. The bear leaned into it. The wood groaned. Thor and Luna moved simultaneously. They crossed the yard at a dead run, closing the distance in seconds, and skidded to a stop 15 feet from the fence. Their barks came in overlapping waves now, controlled, rhythmic, coordinated. Not panic, not rage. Communication. "We see you. We're here. You're not welcome." The bear pulled back from the fence. He sat down. Just sat. Like a dog. For 10 seconds he stared at them. Then he stood, turned, and walked back toward the tree line. Jack exhaled. He hadn't realized he'd been holding his breath. "Is it leaving?" Emily's voice was small, hopeful. "I think so." The bear reached the edge of the pines, stopped, looked back over his shoulder at the house. Then he turned east and disappeared into the shadows. Thor and Luna stood perfectly still, watching the space where he'd vanished. Neither dog relaxed, neither dog moved, because they knew what Jack didn't. The bear wasn't leaving. He was repositioning. The fence came down at 5:21 a.m. The grizzly hit it from the side, the east corner where the property backed up against a cluster of aspens, and the wood had spent 15 winters rotting from the inside out. He didn't charge it. He didn't test it. He just leaned his full weight into the top rail and pushed. The post cracked. The rail splintered. The whole section folded inward like cardboard. He stepped through. Luna saw it happen. She was mid-patrol 20 yards north when the sound of breaking wood snapped her head around. She didn't bark. She didn't hesitate. She just ran. Thor was already moving. He'd been tracking the bear's position by scent and sound, and the second the fence gave way, his body coiled and launched. 95 pounds of controlled aggression closing the distance in 5 seconds flat. The bear was fully inside the yard now. He shook his head, dislodging splinters from his fur, and his eyes locked onto the deck, the garbage cans, the propane tank, the house. Thor hit him from the side. Not a collision, an interception. He cut across the bear's path and planted himself between the animal and the back door. His body language had shifted. No more warnings. No more posturing. This was the line. You cross it, we fight. The grizzly stopped. He was 10 feet from Thor, close enough that Jack, watching from the bedroom window, could see the rise and fall of the bear's breathing. Close enough to see the scars along the animal's muzzle. Old wounds from fights with other males, from barbed wire, from a life lived in a place where everything tried to kill you, and only the strong got to stay alive. Luna arrived 3 seconds later. She didn't stop next to Thor. She flanked right, moving in a wide arc that forced the bear to turn his head. Now he had 2 targets, one in front, one to the side. Classic pack tactics. The bear huffed. A warning. A question. Thor's answer was a growl so low it was almost subsonic, the kind of sound you feel in your rib cage before you hear it. Inside, Jack moved toward the back door. "What are you doing?" Emily grabbed his arm. You need to stay inside. That's the plan. You said it yourself. The fence is down, Em. It's in the yard, and the dogs are handling it. They can't. Yes, they can. Jack looked at his wife. Her face was pale, but her jaw was set. She wasn't scared. Or maybe she was, but she'd buried it under something harder. She believed in those dogs the way some people believe in seatbelts or smoke alarms. Not because they're perfect, because they're all you have. He looked back out the window. Thor hadn't moved. Luna was circling now. Slow, deliberate, keeping the bear's attention split. The grizzly's head swiveled back and forth, tracking her. He took a step toward Thor. Luna barked once, sharp, and he turned back toward her. The dogs were buying time. But time for what? The bear wasn't leaving. The yard wasn't big enough to outmaneuver him indefinitely, and sooner or later he was going to stop asking permission and just take what he came for. Jack's hands tightened on the shotgun. Connor's voice came from the bed, small and cracking. "Daddy, is Thor going to die?" The question landed like a fist to the sternum. Jack turned. His son was staring at him with eyes too wide for a 4-year-old, clutching that stupid stuffed moose like it was the only solid thing left in the world. He wanted to say no. He wanted to promise that everything was going to be fine and Thor and Luna were invincible, and bad things only happened in movies. But he couldn't, so he knelt down, set the shotgun on the floor, and pulled Connor into a hug. Thor's the strongest dog I've ever met, and Luna's the fastest. They're doing their job. And we're going to do ours, which is stay safe in here. Okay? Connor nodded against his chest. Mia was crying now too, silent tears running down her cheeks. Emily sat on the bed and pulled her close. "It's okay, baby. It's okay." But it wasn't okay, and everyone in that room knew it. Outside, the bear made his decision. He stopped reacting to Luna, stopped turning his head, just locked his eyes on Thor and started walking forward. Not charging. Walking. Slow. Confident. The way an animal moves when it's done negotiating. Thor held his ground. His legs were braced. His weight was forward. Every muscle in his body screamed tension. Luna saw it happening. She sprinted back toward Thor, closing the gap, positioning herself at his left flank. Now they were side by side, a united front. The bear kept coming. 15 feet. 10. Thor's growl intensified. Luna joined him, the two sounds braiding together into a single vibration. 5 feet. The grizzly stopped. For one heartbeat, the entire world held its breath. Then the bear rose up on his hind legs. He towered above them, 7 feet tall. His front paws hung in the air, claws extended, 4-inch daggers designed to dig through frozen ground and rip bark off trees. His mouth opened, exposing teeth the size of a man's thumb. He roared. It wasn't a bark. It wasn't a growl. It was the sound of a mountain breaking in half. It rattled the windows of the house. It shook the deck. It echoed through the pines and sent every bird within a quarter mile scattering into the sky. Connor screamed. Mia buried her face in Emily's shoulder. Jack grabbed the shotgun and ran for the door. "Jack, no!" He didn't stop. He unlocked the deadbolt, threw the door open, and stepped onto the deck. The cold air hit him like a slap. The grizzly was 30 feet away, still on his hind legs, still roaring. Thor and Luna were directly between Jack and the bear, their bodies coiled so tight they looked like they might snap. Jack raised the shotgun. His hands were shaking. The barrel wobbled. He tried to find the safety, couldn't remember where it was. Found it, flicked it off. The bear dropped back to all fours. His eyes shifted from the dogs to Jack. That's when Jack realized his mistake. He'd just made himself the biggest threat in the yard. The grizzly charged, not at the dogs, at Jack. 400 pounds of muscle moving faster than anything that size should be able to move. His paws hit the ground in rhythmic thunder, closing the distance in massive strides. Jack froze. His brain screamed at him to shoot, to move, to do anything, but his body had locked up. He stood there, finger on the trigger, watching death sprint toward him at 25 miles an hour. Thor moved first. He launched himself at the bear's front legs, jaws open, aiming for the tendons. He hit low and hard, teeth sinking into the thick fur and muscle just above the bear's wrist. The grizzly stumbled, not much, just a hitch in his stride, but it was enough. Luna went high. She came in from the side and jumped, all 78 pounds of her airborne, aiming for the bear's neck. She didn't reach it. The animal was too tall, but her teeth caught the loose skin along his shoulder and she held on. The bear twisted, trying to shake her off. His momentum broke. He skidded sideways, claws tearing up divots of frozen grass. Thor didn't let go. He braced his back legs and pulled, dragging backward, using his weight and his bite to anchor the bear in place. The grizzly roared again. He reared up, lifting Thor off the ground. The dog's hind legs dangled in the air, but his jaws stayed locked. Luna lost her grip and fell, hit the ground hard, rolled, and was back on her feet in a second. The bear came down, his full weight. He slammed his front paws into the ground and the impact shook the deck. Thor was underneath him. Jack heard the yelp. Short, sharp, cut off. No! He raised the shotgun, finger tightening on the trigger, but the bear was moving, and Thor and Luna were everywhere, darting in and out, and he couldn't get a clean shot without risking the dogs. The grizzly swung his head sideways, and his skull connected with Thor's ribs. The sound was sickening, a wet thud that carried across the yard. Thor flew. His body hit the side of the house with a crack and he dropped to the ground in a heap. He didn't get up. Luna saw it. Something changed in her. The tactical discipline, the coordinated movements, the controlled aggression, it all evaporated. What replaced it was pure, primal fury. She went for the bear's face. Not his legs, not his shoulder, his face. She leapt, jaws wide, aiming for his eyes. The grizzly reared back, swiping with one massive paw. He caught her mid-air. The impact sent her spinning, and she hit the ground 6 feet away. She got up. Blood dripped from a gash along her side. Her breathing was ragged, but she didn't stop. She circled, limping, looking for an opening. The bear turned toward her, and that's when Jack pulled the trigger. The shotgun kicked like a mule. The blast was deafening. The buckshot spread wide, too wide, and most of it went high, tearing through the air above the bear's head. But 3 pellets caught him in the shoulder. Shallow, barely penetrating the fat and muscle, but enough. The grizzly spun toward Jack, roaring, and for a second Jack saw something in the animal's eyes that wasn't hunger anymore. It was rage. The bear charged again. Jack pumped the shotgun, raised it, fired. This time the spread was tighter. The pellets hit the bear's chest. He stumbled, shook his head, but didn't stop. 20 feet, 15. Jack's hands fumbled with the pump. He racked it. The shell ejected. He raised the gun. Too late. The grizzly was on the deck. The wood groaned under his weight. He rose up on his hind legs again, and this time he was close enough that Jack could smell him. Wet fur, carrion breath, the stench of an animal that had been buried alive for 5 months and crawled out angrier than God. Jack pulled the trigger. Click. Empty. The bear's paw came down. It didn't hit Jack. It hit the shotgun. The force tore the weapon from his hands and sent it clattering across the deck. Jack stumbled backward, tripped over the threshold, and fell into the doorway. The grizzly dropped to all fours and stepped forward, one paw on the deck, then another. He was coming inside. Luna hit him from behind. She'd circled around while the bear was focused on Jack, and now she came in fast and low, teeth sinking into the back of the bear's hind leg. She bit down and pulled, throwing her whole body weight backward. The grizzly bellowed and spun, his paw sweeping wide. It caught Luna across the head and she went down hard. This time she didn't get up right away. She lay on her side, legs twitching, dazed. The bear turned back toward Jack, but something moved near the house. Thor. He was standing. Barely. His left front leg hung useless, probably broken where he'd hit the wall. His breathing was shallow and wet, ribs cracked, maybe worse. Blood ran from his mouth, but his eyes were clear, and he was standing. He took one step, then another. Each movement looked like it cost him everything, but he kept moving, toward the bear, toward Jack, toward the line he'd drawn 6 years ago, the day he'd first walked this property. This is mine. You don't cross it. The grizzly saw him, huffed, dismissive. Thor didn't care. He lunged. Not at the bear's legs this time, not at his side. He went for the throat. It was a suicide move, the kind of attack that only works if you're faster, stronger, or luckier than your opponent. Thor was none of those things, but he'd been trained by men who understood that sometimes the only way to stop a threat is to become a bigger threat. His teeth found fur, found skin, found the soft tissue beneath. The bear reared back, roaring, trying to shake him off. Thor held on. His back legs left the ground. He was hanging from the bear's neck now, suspended in the air, jaws locked, refusing to let go even as the grizzly twisted and bucked and slammed him into the deck railing. The wood splintered. Thor's grip slipped. The bear shook one more time and Thor fell. He hit the deck and didn't move. Inside the house, Emily was screaming. She had both kids behind her, one hand on Mia's shoulder, the other holding Connor. She was watching through the window, watching Thor fall, watching Luna struggle to stand, watching the bear turn back toward the open door where Jack was still on his back, unarmed, defenseless. "Get up, Jack! Get up!" Jack tried. His legs wouldn't respond. The adrenaline had flooded his system so hard it had short-circuited everything. He could see the bear, could see the blood on its fur, could see its eyes locked onto him. The grizzly took another step. Luna was on her feet now, swaying, blood matting the fur on her side. Her right eye was swelling shut where the bear's paw had connected. But she was up. She barked once. The bear ignored her. She barked again, louder, sharper. Still nothing. So she ran, straight at the bear. No tactics. No flanking. Just a 78-pound German Shepherd with cracked ribs and a concussion, launching herself at an animal 5 times her size. She went for the hind legs again, bit down, pulled. The grizzly spun faster this time, and his paw caught her full force across the body. She flew. Her body slammed into the woodpile and the logs shifted, burying her. Silence. The bear turned back to Jack, and Thor moved. He shouldn't have been able to. The vet would say later that the damage to his ribs alone should have kept him down. The broken leg, the internal bleeding, the concussion. Any one of those injuries was enough to immobilize a dog. But Thor had never been just a dog. He stood, swayed, found his balance on 3 legs. The bear was 3 feet from Jack now, close enough to reach him, close enough to end it. Thor barked. Once. The same bark he'd given at 4:47 a.m. when the sensor first tripped. Deep, commanding. The bear stopped. He turned his head, looked at Thor, and for the first time since the fence came down, something changed in the grizzly's posture. Uncertainty. Because this dog, this broken, bleeding, barely standing dog, wasn't backing down, wasn't running, wasn't showing submission. Thor took a step forward. The bear took a step back. Thor took another step. His broken leg dragged behind him, leaving a smear of blood on the deck, but he kept coming. The grizzly's ears flattened. And then, from the woodpile, a sound. A growl, low, shaking, furious. Luna pulled herself out from under the logs. Half her face was covered in blood. She was limping on both back legs. But she was moving. She positioned herself next to Thor, side by side. Again, the bear looked at them, looked at Jack, looked at the house beyond. He'd been shot twice, bitten a dozen times. He was bleeding from his shoulder, his leg, his neck, and the 2 animals in front of him, these small broken animals, were still standing, still defending. The math didn't make sense anymore. The grizzly dropped to all 4s, turned, and walked off the deck. He didn't run, didn't charge, just walked, slowly, deliberately, back across the yard, through the gap in the fence, into the tree line, and he was gone. Jack lay on the deck, staring at the sky, unable to process what had just happened. The world was too quiet. The absence of sound felt wrong, like his ears were broken, or time had stopped, or he'd slipped into some alternate dimension where grizzly bears retreated and German shepherds weighed 400 pounds. Thor collapsed. His legs just gave out. He dropped onto his side, breathing in short, shallow gasps. Blood pooled beneath him. Too much blood. Luna took 2 steps toward him and collapsed too. She landed hard, her legs folding awkwardly, and she lay there panting, her one good eye fixed on Thor. Jack found his legs, stumbled to his feet, ran to them. Oh God, no. He dropped to his knees between them. His hands hovered over Thor's body, not knowing where to touch, what to do. There was blood everywhere. The dog's breathing was wet, rattling. His eyes were open but unfocused. Thor, stay with me. Stay with me, boy. Luna whined, a thin, broken sound. She tried to lift her head and couldn't. Behind Jack, Emily burst through the door. She took one look at the scene and her hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God! Call the vet, call anyone. I don't care if there's no signal, keep trying. Emily was already dialing, phone pressed to her ear. Her hands were shaking so badly she dropped it twice. Mia and Connor appeared in the doorway. Jack turned, voice cracking. Get back inside. Now. But Thor! Now. Emily grabbed both kids and pulled them back into the house. Mia was sobbing. Connor was silent, staring at the dogs with eyes that had seen something no 4-year-old should see. Jack turned back to Thor. The dog's breathing was getting slower, shallower. Don't you do this. Don't you quit on me. He pressed his hands against the worst of the bleeding, a gash along Thor's ribs where the bear's claws had raked him. The blood soaked through his fingers. Hot. Too much. You did it. You won. You hear me? You won. Thor's eye moved, just slightly, found Jack's face, and his tail thumped once against the deck. The vet arrived 38 minutes later. Dr. Sarah Brennan, Whitefish Animal Hospital. Jack had called her cell directly, bypassing the clinic, and she'd thrown her emergency kit in the truck and broken every speed limit between town and the Morrison property. She took one look at Thor and Luna, and her jaw tightened. Get me towels, clean water, and a flat surface. Jack and Emily moved like machines. Towels from the bathroom, water from the kitchen. They cleared the dining room table and Sarah went to work. Thor first. She checked his breathing, his pulse, his pupils. Her hands moved with the kind of efficiency that comes from 20 years of rural veterinary work. Farm accidents, wildlife attacks, things that would send city vets running for lawyers. Broken ribs, punctured lung, maybe internal bleeding. I need to stabilize him before I can move him. She inserted an IV, administered fluids, wrapped his ribs. The whole time Thor didn't fight, didn't whimper, just lay there, eyes half closed, breathing. Luna was next. Sarah examined the gash on her side, deep but clean, no organ damage. The swelling around her eye was severe, but the eye itself looked intact. Her back legs were bruised, possibly sprained, but not broken. She's in better shape than him, but she's in shock. Keep her warm, keep her still. Emily wrapped Luna in blankets. The dog didn't resist, just lay there shivering, watching Thor across the room. Sarah worked for another 20 minutes. Then she sat back, wiped her forehead, and looked at Jack. I need to get them to the clinic. Now. Thor's lung is collapsing and I don't have the equipment here to handle it. Will he make it? Sarah didn't answer right away. That hesitation told Jack everything he needed to know. I don't know. If we'd lost him in the first 10 minutes, I'd say no chance. But he's still fighting, so we fight too. They loaded both dogs into the back of Sarah's truck, Thor on a stretcher, Luna wrapped in blankets, still conscious but barely. Jack climbed in beside them. Emily stayed with the kids. Someone had to, and Mia was still hysterical. The drive to Whitefish took 45 minutes. Every minute felt like an hour. Jack sat with his hand on Thor's chest, feeling the rise and fall of each breath, counting them like a lifeline. Come on, boy, stay with me. Thor's eye opened, just a sliver. He looked at Jack, and his tail moved, just once. A tiny, deliberate thump against the stretcher. Jack's vision blurred. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand and kept counting breaths. The surgery took 4 hours. Sarah operated on Thor herself, with an assistant from the clinic helping. They repaired the punctured lung, set the broken leg, stitched the gashes, and pumped him full of antibiotics and pain meds. Luna didn't need surgery, just stitches, rest, and time. Jack sat in the waiting room covered in blood, his dog's blood, staring at the wall. Emily had driven in with the kids an hour ago. Mia was asleep in her lap. Connor was sitting next to Jack holding his hand. Is Thor going to be okay? Jack looked at his son, wanted to lie, couldn't. I don't know, buddy. He's the bravest dog ever. Jack's throat tightened. Yeah, he is. The door to the surgical suite opened. Sarah stepped out, still in her scrubs, pulling off her gloves. Her face was unreadable. Jack stood. How is he? Sarah exhaled. He's stable. The lungs repaired. The legs set. He's got a long recovery ahead, but... She paused. But what? But he's going to make it. Jack's knees buckled. Emily caught him. He sat back down hard, head in his hands, and let out a sound that was halfway between a laugh and a sob. Can I see him? Not yet. He's sedated. But soon. And Luna? She's awake. You can see her now. They brought Jack into the recovery room. Luna was lying in a large crate, wrapped in blankets, an IV in her front leg. Her right eye was swollen shut, and her side was bandaged, but her tail started wagging the second she saw him. Jack knelt down next to the crate, reached through the bars and put his hand on her head. Hey, girl. Luna licked his hand. Once. Twice. Then she laid her head back down and closed her good eye. She saved his life, Sarah said from the doorway. The way she kept pulling the bear's attention. If she hadn't done that, Thor would be dead. Jack nodded. He couldn't speak. Sarah stepped closer. I've been doing this job for 20 years. I've treated dogs that fought off coyotes, mountain lions, even a wolf once. But I've never seen anything like this. Neither have I. What you have isn't just training, Jack. It's something else. What? Sarah looked at Luna. then at the surgical suite where Thor was sleeping. Purpose. 3 weeks later, Thor came home. He walked, slowly, carefully, favoring his front left leg, which was still in a cast. Sarah had cleared him for limited movement, but he wasn't allowed to run, jump, or patrol for at least another month. Luna had been home for 2 weeks already. Her stitches were out, the swelling around her eye was gone, and she'd started limping less. But she hadn't left the front porch. Not once. She just sat there, staring at the driveway, waiting. When Sarah's truck pulled up and Thor stepped out, Luna stood. Her tail didn't wag, she didn't bark. She just walked down the steps, slowly, matching Thor's pace, and stopped in front of him. They touched noses, held it. Then Thor limped past her, up the steps, and collapsed onto the porch. Luna lay down next to him, her body pressed against his. Jack watched from the doorway, throat tight. Emily stood beside him, her hand in his. "They did it," she whispered. "Yeah, we should have lost them." "I know, but we didn't." Jack looked at his wife. "No, we didn't." The fence was repaired the next day. Jack reinforced the posts with steel brackets and replaced the rotted sections with pressure-treated wood. He added motion sensor lights to the back corners and installed a second set of cameras with thermal imaging. The kids went back to playing outside, but only when Thor and Luna were on the porch. It became a rule, an unspoken one. If the dogs weren't outside, neither were they. Mia asked once if the bear would come back. Jack knelt down, looked her in the eye, and told her the truth. "Maybe. But if he does, Thor and Luna will be here. And you'll be here too?" "Yeah, baby. I'll be here too." She seemed satisfied with that. Thor's recovery took 3 months. The cast came off after 6 weeks. The limp lasted another month, but by late June, he was back on patrol. Slower, more careful, but back. Luna never left his side. During the day, she'd run the perimeter alone while Thor rested on the porch. But at night, they patrolled together. Same route, same rhythm. 2 shadows moving through the dark. The bear never came back. Fish and wildlife tracked it for a few weeks using trail cameras. It had moved north, deeper into the flathead, and eventually denned up again. By the time summer arrived, it was gone. But the Morrison family didn't forget. They couldn't, because every time Jack looked at Thor's limp, or the scar along Luna's side, or the patched section of fence in the back corner, he remembered. He remembered the sound of Thor hitting the wall. He remembered Luna pulling herself out from under the woodpile. He remembered the moment the bear turned and walked away, not because it wanted to, but because 2 dogs refused to let it stay. One night in August, Jack sat on the porch with a beer in his hand, watching the sun set over the pines. Thor and Luna were lying at his feet, their bodies pressed together the way they always were now. Emily stepped outside, handed him a second beer, and sat down beside him. "What are you thinking about?" Jack didn't answer right away. He looked at Thor, at Luna, at the woods beyond the fence. "I'm thinking about what Dr. Brennan said, about purpose. What about it? Most people go their whole lives looking for it, trying to figure out why they're here, what they're supposed to do. And these 2 figured it out the day they were born." Emily looked at the dogs. Thor's tail thumped once against the deck. Luna's ear twitched. "To protect us." "Yeah, even if it kills them." Jack's hand tightened around the bottle. "Yeah." Emily leaned her head on his shoulder. They sat there in silence, watching the sky turn orange, then pink, then purple. When the stars came out, Thor stood, stretched, limped down the steps and started his patrol. Luna followed. Jack watched them disappear into the shadows, and for the first time in months he slept through the night, because he knew, absolutely knew, that if anything came out of those woods again, Thor and Luna would be waiting.